Section 9 of A Rip van Winkle of the Kalahari, 7 Tales of Southwest Africa, by Frederick, Cornell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Leanne Fortune. The Crater, The Pleasant Berry's Sleep, and The Awakening, Part 1. I awoke to the tortures of the damned, crushed, broken, and in agonizing pain, and with the aasvogels tearing at my face. Pinned to the earth as by some great weight, my hands were fortunately still free, and my revolver still in its holster, and a few shots sent the lewd, cowardly birds flapping away. The blood was streaming from my face, and again I fainted with sheer agony. Moreover, the fierce midday sun beat down intolerably full in my eyes, for I lay on my back and could move nothing but my arms. But gradually the sun passed, a cool shadow fell across me, and although I believed I was hurt unto death, and indeed longed for death to end my agony, some modicum of relief must have come with the shade, and with it strength and the desire to live. Moreover, it was borne upon me that from somewhere near me came the sound of running, gurgling water, tantalizing and maddening me in my pain and agony. I was lying on a slope with my head lower than my limbs, and all I could see was the sky above me. Do all I could not lift myself, and could not see what pinned my lower limbs to the sand. But maddened more, I believe, by thirst and hearing water running than by the actual agony of my hurt, I at length began to work at the sand on either side of me with my hands, scratching it away until I had altered my position enough to enable me to turn somewhat and raise myself a little on one elbow. Then I found it was my dead horses that pinned me down, for both of them lay crushed and broken partly above me, and looking upwards I saw that a sheer cliff of smooth rock towered straight above me, from which the horses had evidently fallen. I could hear the water plainer now, and though I swooned once or twice from agony, I gradually worked my limbs clear of the incubus pressing on them, and tried to stand up. But this I could not do, some injury to my spine preventing me, and it was as a beast on all fours that I at length made shift to crawl in search of the water I was dying for. Each yard I crawled was agony to me, but at last I came to a rock-encircled pool, in which lay water, clear and deep, and into which a tiny stream splashed and gurgled from an overhanging cliff. Sweet and pure the water was, and in great abundance. I peered into its dark depths, and could see the white sand glimmering at the bottom, full 10 or 12 feet below me, as I judged. I crawled to it, and I drank as I had never drank before, and I bathed my tortured face and limbs, finding that, miraculously, none were broken, though I was bruised and aching in every bone, and to stand erect was quite beyond me. So I drank, and slept, and drank again, and later found strength and appetite sufficient to crawl back to where the dead horses lay, and to search among the scattered contents of my pack for some biltong, and the wherewithal to dress my wounds. And thus for days I lived, and nursed myself gradually back to a measure of my former strength, dragging myself painfully from the water to the shadow of the rocks to sleep, feeling little anxiety as to where I was or what was to happen to me. I had water in plenty, and food sufficient for the present, and after the awful experiences of the desert, my one desire was to rest and sleep. But with returning health came curiosity, and although I was still bent and could not walk upright, I managed to move about and to find out something of the strange prison into which I had been hurled in my frantic flight before the sandstorm. Apparently I was in the hollow cup of an extinct crater, for on all sides towered perpendicular cliffs of dark granite-like rock, so smooth and unbroken for the most part that a baboon would scarce have found foothold upon them. Indeed, in many places they actually overhung. Almost circular, and about 1/4 of a mile in diameter, the floor of this place was to a great extent covered in verdure, broken here and there with rocks, and except where I had fallen there was but little bare sand. How I had escaped being smashed to pieces was inexplicable, for the sheer wall of rock that penned me in was, I judged, at least 500 feet in height, and the horse's bones, now picked clean by the aasvogels, had been smashed by the terrible fall. A short examination of my little domain showed me that although escape from it was apparently hopeless, especially in my maimed condition, there was no need for me to starve, and indeed my prison was a very pleasant one. There were wild fruits in abundance, many of them unknown to me, but prominent among them the red, luscious, intoxicating berries that had saved my life in the desert, and these I now ate greedily, finding them much riper than when I had first tasted them, and their effect much more potent. They intoxicated me, perhaps maddened me, and dulled my intellect for the time, but they gave respite to my pain-racked frame, and gave me sleep. Sometimes for days I would give myself up to them, eating nothing else, and lying in a pleasant, dreamy stupor by the deep pool, staring into the dark, clear depths, where the white sand glimmered so white. At times I roused myself sufficiently to search for other food, of which there was plenty. Partridges and other fowl swarmed at the water, and were easily killed or trapped, and there was plenty of tasama growing quite close to the spot where I had fallen. These, since I had now an abundance of water, I did not attempt to eat, taking only the pips from the ripe ones, drying them in the sun, and pounding them between 2 stones, as I had often seen the Bushmen do. From the coarse meal thus obtained I made little cakes, roasting them on hot stones or the embers of my fire. Matches I had none, but my burning glass served me just as well, for every day the sun shone, indeed seldom did a cloud cross the sky, and whatever storms may have raged outside, nothing but the gentlest breeze ever reached the deep hollow that held me a willing prisoner. Willing? Well, at least apathetic, for all hope, all ambition, all interest in life had left me. I had forgotten the reason of my quest, forgotten the girl who had sent me on it, forgotten that I was once an erect and vigorous man with other interests than to crawl round for berries like an ape, and lie all day and sleep when one's hunger was appeased. And thus I led an invertebrate, purposeless existence. I had warmth, food, and water, and the berries that gave me pleasant dreams, and I wanted nothing more. I took no note of the passing of time. Weeks, months, God knows, even years may have passed, nay, must have passed, as in a dream, and I might well have died there beside the long-bleached skeletons of my horses, but that one day, chance or fate, led me back to the path of reason. I had been sleeping off the effects of the berries, and lay beneath the shade of a rock close to the pool, idly tossing about the tiny pebbles of the little patch of shingle close to its brink, playing with them as a child might. And suddenly a glint on the corner of one of these little stones arrested my wandering attention. There was something familiar about it, something that stirred memories in my sluggish brain. What was it? I groped in vain for some clue. The pebble worried me, and I made a peevish gesture to throw it away. No, whatever it was, I must not do that. Rather wash it, yes, that was what we used to do. But where was the batia? For now, by some strange freak, I was back in Brazil, and must have my batia. We washed our gravel for diamonds in that wooden prospecting pan. Diamonds? My mind was stirring, troubling me now, and with a trembling hand I thrust the pebble into a handful of others, and worked them between my palms in the water. Yes, there it was, A good stone of 10 carats, slightly encrusted with oxide. A good find. And I? Where was I? I stood gazing alternately at the stone and at my surroundings, the pool, the circle of towering cliffs that hemmed me in, and gradually the floodgates of my clouded memory broke loose, and I remembered all. The girl in England, old Anderson, Inyati, and the blue diamond, my ride and fall, all these came back to me almost in a flash, stunning and amazing me. But for long the incidents of my life here in the hollow were vague and misty. The berries! Surely they had been the cause of my lethargy, and even as I thought of them the desire for them came upon me. But for the first time I fought it, for in my reawakened brain other desires were now surging. Diamonds! Inyati had told me there were plenty in his land. Had fate, with a cruel irony, led me into this land of wealth, only to maim me and keep me a lonely prisoner here in this pit till I died? All this flashed through my mind as I stood and gazed at the stone. Then, righting my inclination for the berries, I plunged into the pool, and found new strength and resolution in its refreshing coolness. Then I searched eagerly amongst the other pebbles, and found 3 more diamonds, all fine big stones, yet not to be compared with the blue stone Inyati had given me. Where was it? My pack had been scattered by that terrific fall, but now I remembered the diamond had been sewn securely into the cartridge belt I had always worn. It must be here now with my clothes. For now I realized that I was naked as a savage, clothed but in the long tangled hair on head and chin, scarred, blistered, and burnt, till I looked like a wild man, as I had indeed become. And then I remembered my face, the vulture's, and looking into the clear waters of the pool, I saw, for the first time with sane eyes, my terrible disfigurement, and cried aloud in anguish as I saw what manner of man I had become, and realized that even if I could escape, life was for me a closed book. Scarred, grotesque, and horrible, what future was there for me among my fellow beings? Even though I could return to them, again I was sorely tempted to seek the berries that would give me oblivion from all this agony of regret. But I struggled, and as night came I slept a natural, refreshing sleep, and awoke with a new-born hope and determination strong in me. I would not die here as a wild beast. Somehow I would scale the cliffs and escape, or die in the attempt, a better death than to perish like a rat in a trap, without a struggle for liberty. My head was clearer now than it had been for I know not how long, and I could reason, and Inyati's diamond was my first thought. I could find but little trace of my pack. The white bones of my horses were half buried in sand, a rusty tin here and a few shreds of clothing there, being all that I could find near them. My rifle I found, or rather the remnants of it, for it had been broken to pieces in the fall, and no trace of the stock remained. At length, in a crevice near the pool, I found my revolver with a number of cartridges, my hunting knife, and a few odds and ends of clothing, all in a canvas haversack that still remained strong and sound, and at the bottom my belt and the diamond tied up with Inyati's bracelet. But the leather belt had perished to a remarkable degree. It was hard, black, cracked, and twisted, and broke at my first touch, and I found too, upon searching for the saddles, that nothing remained of them but some dried fragments. I realized then that months must have passed since my fall, but even then I had no conception of the terrible truth. Cheered by the discovery of the blue diamond, I now determined to look closely for others in the vicinity of the pool. But days of laborious searching brought no reward except that the work helped more and more to clear my foggy brain and bring me back to full sanity. I felt convinced that diamonds were there, not far off, however, and one day, as I vainly sorted over the gravel where I had found the others, the solution came to me. In the pool, in the white sand that shone so at the bottom, there I should find them. It was deep and narrow, this pool, and a difficult task even for a good diver, and I determined to wait till midday, when the sun shone full on the bottom. When the time came, I plunged in, and a rapid stroke or two took me to the bottom. End of section 9. Recording by Leanne Fortune, South Africa.